Testing, testing, check 1, 2. Give me the thumbs up. We got the thumbs up. All right. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Broward Spiritist Society live stream. Joining us on Facebook and YouTube. How's everybody doing tonight? You look good. You look well. So, um, let's begin with a short prayer. All right. Let's just take a moment and let's elevate our vibration. Let's shift our attention inward. Let's let the busyness of the day fall away and focus on the here and now. What we're here to do this evening, to connect with our purpose, to open our minds and open our hearts to receive a little bit of the wisdom that was passed down through the Spiritist teachings. We want to ask our mentors, our spirit guides, to be with us, the workers of this house, the Broward Spiritist Society, and to be here in this house where we're giving this talk, and to be with everyone who's joining us this evening, near and far, in the United States and Brazil and all over the world. That each one of us can be a point of light wherever we find ourselves. And let's just prepare ourselves for this work. Let's till the soil of our hearts so that we can plant these seeds of knowledge, that we can cultivate the wisdom, the intellectual and moral intelligence that will guide us through the next steps of our evolution, individually and collectively, as members, citizens of this planet Earth. Let's keep our attitude of gratitude. I'm grateful for this opportunity to be here this evening. And with your permission, let's begin this work. So be it. All right. So welcome, everybody. For those of you who might not know me, my name is Steve, and I'm a member of Broward Spiritist Society here in Pompano Beach, Florida. And tonight, I thought maybe we could speak a little bit about the gospel according to Spiritism. So this is my favorite book, The Gospel According to Spiritism, by Allan Kardec. And in this book, Allan Kardec takes a lot of the teachings from the gospel, which is the New Testament of the Bible, a lot of the things that are in the Bible that are very confusing to those of us who think and ask questions and don't always just take everything that we're told, So in this chapter, we're starting out with a verse from the book of John, chapter 18, and verse 33, 36, and 37. This is when Jesus is in front of Pilate. And I know this story. I'm not sure if everybody knows this story. I don't like to assume that everybody knows all these stories all the time, because sometimes I'm surprised. So Pilate was a Roman judge, I believe. So when the Hebrew people were at the point where they were turning Jesus over and asking him to be condemned, asking for him to be crucified, they couldn't do it themselves. They had to bring it to the Roman, magistrate, the local magistrate. So Pilate enters the scene, and Pilate is the one who has to assess, is Jesus guilty of these crimes that the people are saying that he's doing? That is he blaspheming? Is he, trying to incite a revolution? And so Pilate has to question him. And really, the interesting thing is that Pilate really doesn't see a big problem with what Jesus is doing, but the crowd, the mob, is asking for Jesus to be condemned. So in this section, I'll just start by reading this verse. Then Pilate, returning to enter the palace, and having made Jesus come to him, asked him, "Are you the king of the Jews?" And this is interesting because Pilate is a Roman, and Rome at this time, the Romans are occupying the Middle East, this area, and they're still allowing the local people to sort of go through their normal customs, their normal governments, but their governments really have to answer to the Romans. So the Romans are really in charge. They're occupying these territories. So this is almost a question of, is Jesus a threat to Caesar? But in this context, where Pilate asks him, "Are you the king of the Jews?" And Jesus responded to him, "My kingdom is not of this world. If my kingdom were of this world, my people would have fought to prevent my falling into the hands of the Jews. But my kingdom is not here." Pilate said to him, "Then you are a king." Jesus replied, "You said it. I am a king. I was not born, nor did I come into this world, except to bear witness to the truth. Whoever belongs to the truth hears my voice." So this has been a passage actually that kind of it's been important to me. It's been sort of resonating in my head, like as I go through my daily life, my work, and sometimes that passage comes up in my mind. It goes, my kingdom is not of this world. So what is Jesus talking about here? What does he mean by this? Alan Kardec goes on to explain this because, this is something that I really appreciate the work of Alan Kardec in this book in particular, because it really helps to explain and elucidate some of these topics that didn't really make much sense. Like, how would I really explain what Jesus meant by this without having, some of this context from Alan Kardec? I really would have a very difficult time in a lot of things, a lot of other verses as well. But as Alan Kardec explains, the focus on the future life is the focal point of Christ's teaching. So in everything he taught, he was always trying to explain, to teach, and show an example that we should live lives of love and of service to others. But what was he really the focal point. So it's not exactly like the entirety of the message, but what he's really saying is that this earthly material life is not all that's out there. There's a future life. I don't want to say waiting for us, but it's there when we finish this earthly existence, this transitory state that we're in. That life goes on, and and that's really like the golden thread that really ties together all of his different teachings is this idea that you know this life is temporary. The material world is actually secondary to the spiritual world. The spiritual world has always been and will always be. The material world is transitory. It's not going to last forever. And and Jesus was actually, in this case, he came, he incarnated among the Hebrew people, and a lot of the teachings at that time actually focused on material rewards as a result of faith. So the people actually believed that if I practice my faith, if I'm upstanding and righteous, that I'll have an easy life, I'll have lots of money, and I'll have all this material success. A nice big family, a nice house, plenty of land and livestock, all the things that were important to people at that time. And you know, unfortunately for those people, when Jesus came and with his message that he brought, those people were very disappointed because he was, he didn't. I don't know if he said it outright, like that's not what we're here to do. He wasn't here to make everybody rich and to defeat the Roman Empire and all the things that the Hebrew people were expecting from their Messiah. But it's funny because we talk about this and we're talking about these people from 2,000 years ago, but it's interesting because how much have we really changed as a society and as a culture and as a human race? I still see plenty of people expecting material rewards as a result of their faith. And you see it throughout the different movements. Before I found Spiritism, I was sort of wandering around, dipping my toes into all kinds of different spiritual practices. And so one of the things that I found was in the spiritual community, they talk a lot about abundance. Oi. So manifesting abundance, it's just another like type of word, but it really means the same thing. It's really like we're looking for material comforts. And it's not wrong to seek material comforts. I mean, Alan Kardec even says like, who wouldn't want to be more comfortable in this lifetime, in this existence? It's perfectly natural to want to have a comfortable life, and not like suffer more than we need to. But this idea that sometimes we have this idea that if you're not living like a materially abundant life, maybe you're doing something wrong. Like, sometimes in certain religious groups, they pass a basket around and collect an offering. And sometimes, there's a funny saying they say that, the more you give, the more you live. And they have this idea that if I make sacrifices that I'll get something in return. And it's true, yes, we will get something in return, but it's not always these material things that we're expecting. And that was really the focal point of Jesus' message, that he's trying to show us that there's a future life waiting for us, and that what we're here on this planet to do, it's not to become rich and powerful and successful. We're here to try to plant the seeds for our future life. And so one of the great things about Spiritism is that it helps to complete Christ's teaching by demonstrating to us the fact of the future life. I mean, because think about how many thousands of years passed between when Jesus was here and today. 2,000 years, many generation people, hundreds and hundreds of years. And there was some amount of time where perhaps this idea that there's a future life was really more of an idea or a notion rather than a demonstrated material fact. But, when we began to see mediums popping up, and yes, they've been popping up all through the ages, but then, it does seem that in the middle of the 19th century, that there was an uptick. It seemed like the voices couldn't be held down anymore, and they began to actually, we were hearing the eyewitness accounts of people who have lived here on this planet, have transitioned to the other side, and are able to tell us what was their experience like, living in the human body, in the flesh, passing on to the spirit world, and what type of situation they've found themselves in on the other side. And so these eyewitness communications with the facts that they sometimes pass along, which actually prove that the individuals are who they say they are, is what actually makes these this notion of the future life no longer an idea, but a scientifically demonstrated fact. And that reminded me of the idea of having a revelation. And Alan Kardec talks about it in the book Genesis, Miracles, and Predictions According to Spiritism, where he talks about the three revelations. The first revelation being Moses, the second revelation being Jesus, and the third revelation being Spiritism. And what is a revelation? And why do we need revelations? Because revelations, it's something that's revealed. And it's important because it's something that the majority of us cannot see or cannot feel or sense with our normal five senses. It needs to be revealed to us because, the majority of people can't see or hear or talk to spirits or perceive that there is, another dimension, next to ours. Most of us don't see this. So it had to be revealed. And these three, that's why we talk about the three revelations. When Moses came and received the communication for the Ten Commandments, the Decalogue, which was at that time appropriate for the people of that time to show them, like, this is how one should live one's life. One should not murder. One should not covet another's wife. One should not steal. And it's like, these are things you should not do. Do this, don't do that. And for the people at that time, like, that were mostly shepherds and, farming people, this is the type of instruction that they needed. Later on, Jesus came, and his revelation was to show us that there is a future life and that we need to live a life of love. And, he made the ultimate sacrifice on this behalf, but he knew, this was not the end. He knew that there was no such thing as nothingness. So he knew what he was doing was the right thing to do. And then later, when we had the advent of, spirit communications coming from around the entire globe, and it seems like they started popping up, nearly simultaneously, that mediums started popping up with communications, and it was so prevalent, and it was becoming so common that Alan Kardec was able to begin studying it and actually testing the communications and seeing which communications are good, truthful communications and which ones are, misleading or deceitful, and began to sort of compile this work that became that later, you know, became the doctrine of Spiritism. And this is why it's important to know about the revelation, because it was something that, the majority of people would not be able to perceive had it not been revealed to us. So when Jesus says, "My kingdom is not of this world," and Pilate asks him, like, "Are you really a king?" And it's an interesting question, because, how do we really look at Jesus as a king? And and normally when we like I want to say, here in the United States, we don't really have kings, but at that time, and when Allan Kardec was writing this in the mid 19th century, I'm not really sure actually if there were still a lot of kings prevalent, but the idea of royalty really is something that's passed down from generation to generation. You're either born, with it, or you're born without it. Most of us are not. So there is that idea that it's something you inherit at birth. But when Jesus says he's the king, how did Jesus become the king? It's not because of being born with this, entitlement. It's because Jesus earned it. Through successive reincarnations over, I believe, billions of years, Jesus perfected himself to the point where, he was able to become the governor of this planet. And so that's why we can actually, look up to and respect Jesus, is because he's earned it. And he didn't come here to, show his power or abuse the power. He came here to show us, like, the way to follow in his footsteps, through love. Earthly sovereignty ends with the material life, with the flesh, but moral sovereignty continues even after death. They say, a lot of times they say, you can't take it with you, with things like money and cars and possessions. They say you can't take it with you, but what you can take with you is the things that you truly earn, are these qualities like humility and patience and love. And those are the things that we really should treasure as human beings on this planet. And I've had this kind of like notion popping through my head for a few days. And I think that's why I thought about giving this talk today, was this idea of moral ascendancy. Because sometimes, in my life, in my regular life, when I'm not at the Spiritist Center, not trying to, act spiritual or anything, when I'm out like with regular people and things pop up, like sometimes you have moral questions like, should I do this? Should I do that? And sometimes there's opportunities that pop up, and you start to think like, oh, maybe I could get away with this. Maybe if I took this, nobody would notice. Maybe I could get away with this thing. And this idea has been like popping up in my head, like about moral ascendancy, about doing the right thing even when nobody's watching. And I'm not here to tell you that I always do that, but I'm thinking about it. And it's been in my mind for quite a little while, and thinking about like, what have I earned, and what am I going to take with me, and what's really important to me. And it's not about showing people how spiritual I am or acting or pretending spiritual, but it's really like, when I rid myself of this material body, and I'm in the spirit world, and I'm basically, naked, that way. There's no hiding anything in the spirit world because our thoughts are like transmissions that everybody can read. We're an open book. And I think, like what am I going to be transmitting? And and if I'm still here like doing things that I know aren't right, thinking I'm going to get away with it, that I might be able to get away with it, I'll be thinking wrong. And you know, it's been on my mind quite a bit lately. Um, because if you're like me, when you leave the Spiritist Center, most of the people that I'm around aren't really interested in the spirit, life, in the future life. They're most of the people that I know, at work or in public places, are focused more on what's right in front of them, and you know, and money and possessions and all the things that we're you know that are here available on this planet, and and so it's very easy to get kind of caught up in that kind of thinking. Even at my job, sometimes they have lottery pools. Like when the lottery numbers get really high, they'll start to say like, "Oh, everybody's putting in $10, and we're gonna buy a bunch of tickets, and if we win, like we'll all split it." And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm sure if we win, like it's not gonna get split completely evenly." But um, I'm just, it's funny because I don't even put my money into the lottery pools. I'm like, you know what? I think I'll just take the pain and suffering. you know? And my coworkers think I'm crazy, and they might be right, but um, but yeah, somehow this stuff like has kind of gotten to me, all this spiritism teaching. But they say you can't take it with you. Fun fact: they say that most people who actually win the lottery are actually completely broke or like in terrible debt within about 2 years, because that shock of actually getting so much money all at once is actually like terrible for you. So I read it in a book one time, and then it sounds plausible. So just think about that. Um, but so let's yeah, we can close up a little bit. Let's try to remember that this material life, we're living here in a transitory state. So knowing that there's a future life, and knowing that this is all temporary, it makes it easier for us to bear the vicissitudes and tribulations of life, with patience, with calm, with reservation, with dignity, knowing that this is all only temporary. So Alan Kardec makes a analogy that he says, if you are living in a city and you're surrounded by all these tall buildings, everything looks huge when you look up. Even the people up there, that must living in the top levels, like they must seem like kings to us. But then he says, if you go to the top of one of those buildings and you look down, everything looks so tiny. The people look like ants. He said, imagine that is us here on earth looking up to the spirit world, looking up to these enlightened spirits that we even call angels. But we can get to there. We can progress, through our moral transformation, through our moral ascendancy, through our intellectual work too, intellectuality and morality, together, through learning, through experiencing, through living, through loving, that we can progress through these stages and get to that point. And when we're up there in the spirit world looking down, all these material things will look so small. The money, the cars, being the CEO of a big company, all these things that seem really important to us, they're not important because you really can't take it with you. So, my dear brothers and sisters, I hope that when we go from here tonight, when we go through our lives, when we go to work, when we meet people, and situations pop up, and life can seem kind of miserable sometimes if we get caught up in it. But when we get to that point, let's just remember that our kingdom is not of this world, and that we have our eyes fixed on the future life, and that we're living for a different purpose. We're here to love. We're here to learn to look at everyone around us, our friends, our family, our coworkers, the strangers we meet out in the street, looking at everyone as brothers and sisters. So thank you. Um, hope I hope that I was able to reach you and guide and help inspire you through the message. And now we will do our announcements. All right. We'll wait till I get the thumbs up. We got the thumbs up. Ready to go? Okay. All right. So here's our reminders. Oh. So here's just a quick reminder. If you're watching this on YouTube or Facebook, well, you must be, because we're broadcasting on Facebook and YouTube. But quite often, some people don't always get the notifications. So I do recommend, if you're on YouTube, you can click subscribe. But beyond just subscribing, if you want to be notified when Broward Spiritist Society goes online, click the bell icon, and that way you should actually get a notification like Broward Spiritist Society is live. Or you might actually get a notification like 30 minutes before the video even starts saying like we will be live. If you want, I'm not telling you what you have to do, but I do recommend, if you want to be present for all the talks live, so you can check in and say boa noite a todos, then click the bell. All right, you don't want to get left out. Also, if you're on Facebook, does anybody still use Facebook anymore? I don't know. You can like Broward Spiritist Society, but liking won't get you all the notifications. If you want, you have to actually click the following button to see, I want to say default. So that way, if you follow, when Broward Spiritist Society goes live, you'll get a notification saying Broward Spiritist Society is live. I mean, if you're on Facebook and YouTube, you could get them both, or you could pick which one you want to get notified about, or whatever. That's up to you. But I do recommend that way you don't miss anything. Even sometimes people like the page, but maybe you like 1,000 different pages, and they're sort of fighting for who's going to pop up in your newsfeed. This way, you follow us. That way, we'll pop up, and you get a notification. Broward Spiritist Society is live now, and you can join in. You can participate, from home or from wherever you are. All right. Tuesday evening, 7 p.m. on YouTube, from the Broward Spiritist Society YouTube page, there's a meditation in English. So it premiered last night at 7. There was one in Portuguese for anybody who speaks Portuguese at 6:30 p.m. And 7 p.m. was a meditation in English. So our sister Cynthia is still able to participate here from afar, so we appreciate it. And check it out. In the Realms of Mediumship is a book study group in English. It happens Tuesday nights at 8 p.m. And if you want to get involved with that, they meet on a Zoom conference. So get in touch with us, and we can get you the Zoom credentials. You can sign in. Now, our center is not open to the public, but we are still here. We're keeping the space, and so we still have rent to pay and electricity, and we're doing these live streams. So, so we are still helping to support our center through food sales. So every Saturday, just about every Saturday, we offer a meal. So this week, it's Salisbury steak, or you could call it meatloaf, but it looks pretty good. I already actually ordered mine. So it's $12. We do need you to place the order in advance. So please place the order by Thursday, please, so that, because there's people and they have to buy the ingredients and cook the food, and that way they can have it, ready for Saturday. So I know a lot of people like to wait till Saturday at 3 p.m. and then say, "Oh, I think I want to have the dinner at the center." Like, please put your order in advance. And even if you're not sure, just do it anyway, because help support our center, right? So if you want to get involved with that, just get in touch with us and we can help place the order. And we pick up between 5:30 and 6 p.m. on Saturday evening. That way you have enough time to get home, pop on YouTube, and watch the 6:30 palestra or the 6:30 lecture. All right, so that's it for the announcements. So thank you so much for joining us this evening. And to finish up, we'll just do a short prayer. So once again, just shift our attention inwards. With our focus up towards the heavens. Thank you, Master Jesus, for coming here so long ago to show us the way to live lives that truly matter, living not for our own selfish gain, but learning to live for others, learning to live lives of love, learning to live lives of service, learning to make sacrifices for other people, and ultimately receiving the gifts of love. We thank you so much. And for sending your messengers throughout all the centuries to every corner of the globe to continue to share this message with us, that we can learn to put the needs of others ahead of the needs of ourselves, that we can learn to live with patience and dignity when we face the trials of life, that we can learn to accept the small problems, the small suffering that we face each day, knowing that it will lead to our future happiness. Let's open our hearts and let these messages continue to blossom for all of eternity. Thank you. And with your permission, we'll end this work for tonight. So be it.